An EMP attack, they say, is an intense burst of electromagnetic radiation. It can be triggered by detonating a nuclear weapon at high altitude, a weapon that could be launched by a rogue nation or a terrorist group with access to it. Detonated low to the ground, atomic weapons have a devastating physical shock. But detonated miles up in the atmosphere, experts say, the main impact is electrical, energy that doesn't kill people but spreads like lightning, striking any electrical grid or circuitry, feeding into them, burning them out. Whole cities could go dark.
That means no water. That means no food. That means no telecommunications. That means no transportation. That means no medical supplies.
You start pushing in the cops game and they're herding us like cattle.
This clip from a recent National Geographic special gives us a sense of what life might be like after an EMP attack.
The United States has great strength and patience, but if it is forced to defend itself or its allies, we will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea. Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime. The United States is ready, willing, and able, but hopefully this will not be necessary. That's what the United Nations is all about. That's what the United Nations is for. Let's see how they do. It is time for North Korea to realize that the denuclearization is its only acceptable future.
If it sounds far-fetched, consider that last July, a steamer owned by Iran's ally, North Korea, was found in Panama hiding nuclear-capable SA-2 missiles under 10,000 tons of sugar. Experts believe Russia has given EMP technology to North Korea. Our sun also produces EMPs through coronal ejections. A big one called the Carrington event occurred in 1859. Telegraph offices and lines caught fire. Experts say our electric grid is no better protected today than telegraph lines were then.
Pyongyang, North Korea, launching this rogue satellite that they dubbed the Shining Star that was going in the opposite direction of most satellites around the planet. The U.S. military was watching it, saying it was going to start tumbling and fall out of the sky. Since then, they haven't said much, and it's still there. So I just wanted to point it out and let it be known that it is still there. It never did just fall out of the sky. After going and looking and following the link from that video that I put out on it, sure enough, they're still tracking it, KMS-4. And it's making passes over the United States. As you can see here, it looks like New England is what it's going to pass over next time it comes around, and then right over the middle of the United States. And it makes several passes. You can come here and look at the 10-day predictions from your location. So this thing is making its passes over the U.S. It's going to continue to do this. The truth of the matter is no one knows what's aboard it. Period. And the one thing that's always loomed in my mind, because this thing flew right over the Super Bowl area during one of the last Super Bowls, was, what if they do have like an EMP type of something on this? Going over the United States. It just blows my mind that with everything going on with North Korea, this thing's still allowed to float over our country constantly. And they've done nothing about it.
A top U.S. general says North Korea has not changed its military posture despite the recent escalation of tensions on the Korean peninsula. But he also says the regime remains a clear and present threat to the United States with a capability to strike the mainland with ballistic missiles.
Something that General Hyten said is something I've also said in public is that whether it's 3 months or 6 months or 18 months, it is soon. And we ought to conduct ourselves as though it is just a matter of time and a matter of a very short time before North Korea has that capability. One of the issues that we all ought to appreciate is that as the capacity of the threat increases, that is the size, not just the lethality, not just the fact that North Korea can reach us, but the numbers of missiles that they may possess that can reach us. And what we need to be concerned about is ensuring that our ballistic missile defense capability keeps pace with that threat.
It's a normal day for people at U.S. Army Garrison Humphreys. Well, not exactly. A civil defense drill is taking place in which the military police on post make sure everyone seeks shelter in place. And traffic is at a halt. But this isn't the first time a drill like this has happened.
We do this exercise monthly basis. The main reason why we wanted to do this exercise is to exercise the emergency service and security personnel to improve response time and efficiency in securing the installation.
With the monthly civil defense drills occurring each month, soldiers, civilians, and their families on post are able to be more vigilant of real-world situations that could happen within their installations. Senior Airman Angeline Pangilinan, USAG Humphreys, Republic of Korea.
Although Russia's foreign ministry has just revealed that it is engaged in behind-the-scenes diplomatic activity to try and calm tensions on the Korean Peninsula, at the moment they're not saying what that activity constitutes. The Russian position at the moment is that it believes that sanctions are essentially running out of steam. It has voted for sanctions twice recently in the UN Security Council, but I don't think it's going to go any further. And also Russia believes that any conflicts on the Korean Peninsula would be absolutely catastrophic. I think it's clear that Moscow's position is that Donald Trump is being irresponsible in the language that he's using at the moment and ratcheting up tensions. So what might Russia be able to do to calm the situation down? Well, actually, Russia does have fairly good economic and, to some degree, political relations with Pyongyang, and it could use these if it wanted to. So perhaps it believes that the carrot is the best way forward rather than the stick that Mr. Trump seems to favour. If you read people like Dmitry Trenin, who's the head of the Carnegie Center here in Moscow, he thinks that perhaps Moscow could persuade North Korea not necessarily to give up its nuclear weapons, because that's unlikely to happen. Vladimir Putin has said that the North Koreans would eat grass before Pyongyang gave up its nukes, but more that Moscow could persuade Pyongyang to put into place some kind of strategic restraint, and it could do that by offering it economic sweeteners. It could maybe do gas deals with North Korea. It could maybe restore rail links and also boost the number of North Korean workers who are currently working in Russia. Things that can actually help the North Korean economy and persuade Pyongyang that the march to war is not in anyone's best interests.
I cannot conceive of a situation where North Korea would start a massive conventional war or use its nuclear weapons, because Korea needs its nuclear weapons to consolidate the regime and to tell North Korean people that they are advanced and so on, they are nuclear power and so on. But I can easily conceive of North Korea continuing testing nuclear weapons and developing intercontinental ballistic missiles. And if here in the United States this is considered intolerable and the United States use conventional forces to destroy, to disarm North Korea, then it might use nuclear weapons if any are left after such an attack.
I would just note that a few years ago I was doing research in the Saddam Hussein archives here at the National Defense University and saw so many examples of Saddam's yes men telling him that his military capabilities was much greater than it was, because he had asked them to get that capability, and when they couldn't get it, of course, they couldn't tell him that. I worry, for example, when you see the pictures of Kim Jong-un with his generals and missiles on the drawing boards launching towards the United States, that may just be pure propaganda, but it could also be propaganda for their lone leader. And in these scenarios, I think we need to worry very deeply about how much understanding he has of his own military limitations.
But as little as he has of the understanding, he cannot imagine that North Korea would survive after American retaliation.
This is a scary scenario because I've been talking to a lot of people who say they're actually surprised that North Korea hasn't lobbed a missile at Guam or Hawaii or Japan or Seoul. But this is something they could do that might be a more grave outcome than a nuclear bomb blowing up in the continental U.S.
Yeah, this kind of an H-bomb, an EMP or an HEMP, as the computer people call it, is the worst case scenario. That is a nuclear holocaust. And it would be a situation where a hydrogen bomb is dropped over the contiguous United States and it completely disrupts the electric grid in this country, meaning no access to any electricity, to running water, to any, to the internet. I just want to allay everyone's fears. This is unlikely to happen.
Why is it unlikely? But if North Korea, if they're developing nuclear weapons and they back up some of the talk that they've been using lately, why would we put that past them?
Because this is an incredibly sophisticated style of an attack. Not only does it require the correct nuclear technology and the correct instrument to deliver it to the United States, but it requires an incredible amount of military hardware sophistication that we're not entirely sure they have.
Yes.
But it is worrisome to the degree that the power companies in this country, the utility companies, have been thinking about this. The government has been thinking about it since the 60s.
What sort of safety measures are in place for something like this? Because obviously you can't test it. Since the 60s, it has been illegal to do any high-altitude nuclear testing like that for obvious reasons. But what sort of backup?
This is where there's not a lot of great news. The United States is woefully, the United States government is woefully unprepared for an attack like this.